Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who's tuning in. Hope you're doing well and staying safe. On behalf of PioPetro, Arab Oil and Gas Academy, and SPE Egypt section, I would like to welcome you all in our first session in our summer internship. Before we start, I'm Mayar Tariq, Gas and Petrochemical Engineer student, and I'll be your moderator for today. Before we start, I'd like to remind you to drop your questions in the Q&A section below and to keep the chat box professional and ethical, noting that there will be many live and recording sessions and will be done by the end of August. So, without further ado, let us welcome Dr. Yasser Elshayeb, who will be giving us a session on the introduction to rock mechanics stability problems with a focus on Egyptian cases. Dr. Yasser Elshayeb is a professor of engineering at the American University in Cairo and the former chief of party of the Center of Excellence for Water. Professor Elshayeb has always been active in the field of culture, heritage management, and conservation, risk assessment, and project management through the participation and management of several international projects in those fields. He was also the director of the Egyptian Center for Documentation of Culture and Natural Heritage between 2012 and 2014. Between 2006 and 2019, Dr. Elshayeb was the Egyptian National Coordinator of EU programs on higher education. And since 2006, he was highly involved in the setting up of the Euro-Mediterranean policies and dialogues on higher education, research, innovation, and culture as a focal point of many Euro-Mediterranean programs in Egypt. Dr. Yasser is a graduate of Cairo University in 1990 with a degree in engineering and had a PhD from Nancy School of Mines in France on the contribution of fuzzy logic to geotechnical risk assessment of some ancient tombs at the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Since his early years, Dr. Elshayeb has developed a passion for various fields of science and knowledge dissemination. Thank you so much, Dr. Yasser, for coming today, and the mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayar, for this introduction. Thank you, Dr. Elshayeb, for giving me the opportunity to be here. I think it's the first webinar that we hold this year on the summer internship. And today I will try to give you some glimpse of how rock mechanics, how geotechnical engineering, how geotechnics, how we use all of those tools in various fields. And I'll be focusing mainly on Egyptian cultural heritage cases, but I will also look into other cases from around the world where we have used or employed rock mechanics to study stability problems of monuments or cultural heritage sites. As Mayar said, I am Yasser Elshayeb. I'm a professor of engineering at the American University in Cairo at the Petroleum and Energy Engineering Department. And I'll be taking you throughout this this presentation. I think we will stay for like 45 minutes or so. Let me start by, this is the agenda. So I will be speaking firstly on the stability of rock structure, how we assess, how we look into the stability of rock structures that are built or dug into rocks. I'll speak about some problems that we see in the world and the causes of those problems, the stability of cultural heritage rock sites. So I'll focus more on cultural heritage sites. And then finally, the cases from Egypt. I'll give you, I think it's about 5 or 6 cases that I will be speaking about in Egypt, how we dealt with it, how we looked into it, and how we were able to assess its stability. So rock structures in general. And before that, I mean, let's look into the word stability. And actually, I went into the dictionary and looked into different dictionaries about the word stability. How can we define it? And yeah, maybe the definition that I would like to retain, or that I would like you to retain, is that stability is the capacity of an object to return to equilibrium or its original position after having been displaced, or let's say after having been disturbed somehow. So it's a measurement of how an object will stay stable and will be able to retain maybe an original position or a new position after some changes that happens to it. And this is the word stability. Now comes the word stability of rock structures, and as well I went into the internet, and this is the reference where I got my my definition from, or this sentence from. So the stability of rock structure is a more general definition where the rock mass is able to maintain its structure. And I hope that we all know what is a rock mass. A rock mass is the collection of everything that is in the rock. It's not a small piece of rock, it's the rock, it's the layers, it's the joints, it's the fractures, it's the stresses, it's everything that is within a rock, and we call it a rock mass. And I'm sure that if you will Google the word rock mass, you will find a lot of explanation about this word. Yes, I mean this is maybe a graph that would explain the difference between a small piece of rock, which we call it an intact rock, and then everything that is within this circle, which is the rock mass. And as I said before, it's the layers, it's the bedding planes, it's the fractures, it's the type of structure or type of rock or type of stone that we have, everything that is included in this definition of rock mass. Now, rock mass by default is subjected, I mean, in nature, in the earth, it is subjected to a lot of stresses, a lot of forces that would make it sometimes not stable. And I'm putting here two main examples. This is in those four graphs. This is like a tunnel that is dug into the rock, and with the existence of layers that we see here, or with the existence of discontinuities that we see here, or with the existence of seismic activities that we see here, or with the direction of bedding planes that we see here, this rock or this tunnel that we have dug into the rock is actually subject to instability problem, or potential instability problem, I would say. Now, another type of instability that happens is actually the instability due to the slopes. And in slopes, I mean, if you walk into the mountains, or I mean, all over the world, you will find that there are mountains and hills, and those mountains and hills, sometimes we face this instability due to the slope of that mountain or hill, which results in different types of slides. So we have here what's called translational slide. We have here what's called rotational slide, a flow when it's muddy or sandy, spread and toppling, and pieces of rocks that are falling on the slope, and so on and so forth. Different types of rocks, different types of stabilities, different types of behaviors, different types of things, but all of them are causing problems, or I would put it into scientific terms. This is causing instability, which is the opposite of stability. So it's called the instability of the rock structure due to various things. Now, you can look at into examples. So this is, for example, this is a mine. This is an underground mine, and in this underground mine, we have here pillars of rocks that are supporting the roof, the layers that are above us. We are here something like maybe 150 to 200 meters below the ground, and you can, of course, speak. I mean, we can speak about the stability of this area. Will this roof fall here, leading to a destruction of and the death maybe of people that are living or that are working in this mine? So this is an example of stability or instability that we can look at. Now, another type of instability is this figure again, and here we have a slope. So this is the rock, and here you have some vegetation, and you can see here that the bedding planes are kind of somehow vertical to this slope. So we can, I can imagine that some of those layers will fall down this way and will lead to the instability of anything that we will construct. So if I have a house, for example, that is constructed here, I have the risk that this house will fall because of the instability of the rock mass. Now, this is another type of structure that we construct. This is actually an artificial wall or artificial dam. You can think of it as a wall or as a dam. And here we are putting rocks together, and we're putting them together. We're putting some mud and some sands in between, and then with some water, maybe some cementing material, we put them there in order to create a wall or in order to create a dam. And also, we are still facing some problems of instability that may happen in this area. So, in short, or as an engineer, if I think about the stability of rock structure, I need to think or to consider all the forces or the stresses that are acting in my site. So I need also to consider the mechanics of the rocks that are in there, which is leading us to rock mechanics. So if I move in this slide from the bottom to the top, I would say in order to work on rock mechanics or geomechanics or rock engineering, you call it whatever you want, you need to study two things. You need to study the mechanics of the rocks that you are dealing with, or the materials that you're working with, and you need also to study the forces or the stresses that are acting on those rocks in order to account for the stability. Now, the causes of rock stability are actually a lot of. We have a lot of causes that we can think about. Some of them are natural causes. Some of them are man-made causes, and some of them are actually related to the environment and to the geography or the climatic condition that happens. And here I have, if you want to study the stability of a rock structure, you need to consider the geological factors like the lithology, the type of rocks, the structure, the slope that you have, the strength of the rock, as I said before, the slope gradient, is the slope very steep or very mild? Does it have any tectonics in it? Does it have any motions due to tectonic plates moving around? And I guess that you know all about the tectonic plates theory. And does it have any kind of volcanism or volcanic activities that are in this place? Geomorphological processes, which are sometimes the erosion that happens from the weathering, from the water, from the glaciers, from the wind, and the transportation of weathering materials. The vegetation, trees, when they come and then they install themselves on the top of any rock materials, they start to build, they start to grow their roots, and those roots are actually dividing the rocks that are beneath them. So this may lead to, again, to other forms of instability. The water is very important because the water sometimes it makes the rocks slide with respect to each other. Sometimes it makes the rocks more heavy than it was before if it's very porous material. And then comes the where are we? Are we in the north of in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere? Because this also has a lot of effects. And then finally, we have here the human activities, which means that we dig roads, we build roads, and then we build bridges, and then we dig tunnels, and then we need our cars to go below the ground, and then we need our trains to also to go below the ground, or we construct train lines. All of this is also making some aggravation of this of the conditions of the rocks. And not to forget about, of course, the time. Time is very important for the rocks. With time, the rocks get less and less stable, and it makes the rocks. If you measure the rock strength, for example, of a certain type of rock over a period of 200, 300 years, you will observe that the same rock is having its strength deteriorating with time. So all of those factors you need to consider when you are speaking about rock instability? What is the real cause of rock instability? How can you consider this? How can you look into the types of or the reasons for the instability that is happening? This is a different way of looking into the same thing. Again, it's a paper that is published in the Engineering, Geology, and the Environment Bulletin in 2018. But here we are speaking only about the slope stability. I'll not go into the details of everything that is in this slide, but you can of course look into it and then reason that all of those parameters that are listed here are affecting actually the stability of the slope. Now, if I go and focus a little bit on the causes of slope failure, as we spoke about the rock failures, then we have the sudden shocks that causes the rocks to flow, the steepness of the slope, as I spoke about before, the vegetation that here or there, the bedding planes that are naturally within those rocks, and many other considerations that I need to look into those, I need to take into my consideration. So all of those parameters needs to be looked at. All of those parameters needs to be considered when I am looking into a natural site where I want to dig either a tunnel or a slope or put a site on it, as I will show you later on. Now, I'll focus a little bit on the stability of cultural heritage rock sites. And let me show you some examples from around the world, and then I'll go into the cases from Egypt afterwards. The first case that we have here is actually a site in Bulgaria. This is a church in Bulgaria that is actually dug into the slope. So you have this mountain here, and within this mountain you can see here there are some small tunnels that are dug within this slope, and it's a church. I mean, it's quite beautiful as a church, as you can see it here. So this is one of the churches that are in there. It's actually a series of churches that are dug within the rock, and actually the roof is painted. The walls are also painted. Nevertheless, we observe here some maybe instability. I wouldn't call it instability, but I would call it reasons to believe that we need to study those things a little bit closer. You see this fracture here, or this joint here that is separating the rocks from each other, and actually you can trace this fracture to the roof. You can see it here on the roof, and it apparently it's like it's like you have the tunnel like this, and then you have like a fracture that is inclined to the direction of this tunnel. And if we want this site to live longer, because it's already an old site, I think it's about 1,000 years old. So if we wanted to live longer with the time that is passing by, with the visitors that are coming in, if we want to study the safety of those who are inside this, that goes inside this church, we need to look into the movements of the rocks that are here. We need to look into this fracture. How is it behaving? Is it opening up? Is it stable? Is it stopping? Can we fix it? Can we stop it from moving? If it's moving, can we look into it and have some monitoring devices maybe on it, so we can predict what can happen in the future? Another example that is coming from India, and it's the Elora Caves. And I suspect that those caves were also dug for religious reasons, maybe. But the site looks like this, and it's as if you have like a slope. And with this slope, you have, ancient Indians have started digging into those slopes in order, maybe for prayers, maybe for living, maybe for other reasons. I don't know actually the main reason for that, but it is a World Heritage Site that is in there. And again, in order to keep everything stable, in order not to risk that people that are coming to visit this cultural heritage site, that they will not be killed, they'll not be injured, we need to look into the stability of this slope and understand what are the stresses, what are the forces, what are the reasons that we need to take into consideration. A third case is coming from Peru, and this is the Machu Picchu, the very famous Machu Picchu site. It's an Inca site on the top of one of the mountains in Peru. And again, it is a landslide, because this site here is built actually on the top of this mountain that you can see here. And there are a lot of studies. Actually, I participated in one of the studies that were done on this slope to assess the stability of the slope itself, with the time, with the vegetation, with the activities, with everything that is happening, with the rains that are falling, with the deterioration maybe of some of the materials that are in there. Is it stable? Is it safe? Or we will face a situation where all of this site will just disappear by flowing and falling from on the slope. So this is something that we need also to look at, because this is a very valuable site. This is a cultural heritage site of an international value, and we need to look into its stability, and we need to ensure its instability. Sorry, we need to ensure its stability on the ground. Now, again, another site that is maybe known for many of us, Petra in Jordan. And in Petra in Jordan, it's like sandstone. And in this sandstone, you have a lot of carving of the sandstone of the slope. And you see here the slope, how steep it is. And within this very steep slope, I mean, ancient Nabateans, they have dug those, or they have carved those houses, and they have dug actually houses inside the rock. And again, we need to look into the stability. You need to look into the forces that are acting on those slopes, and we need to look into the resistance that the slope is having, the sandstone, is having, and we need to calculate sometimes factors of safety. What will happen? Shall we allow more vegetation? Shall we prohibit vegetation? Shall we prohibit people from getting inside it? Because all of those are affecting actually this site. Now comes the time where we need to speak about I need to speak about the cases from Egypt. This is my country. This is where I come from. And here I have maybe a little bit, I think about 6 cases that I will tell you about, and I will get a little bit into details about the analysis that were done there. The first case is called the Tomb of the Seraphim. It's in Giza. It's in Egypt, in Saqqara. I mean, a place near to Cairo, like 25 kilometers southwest of Cairo. And the tomb is actually quite long one. I mean, you see here its length is about more than 220 meters. And it consists of a gallery, and this gallery, I mean, there's another gallery here, and there's like connections between those 2 galleries. And then within this gallery, you have like burial chambers here. It's a religious tomb. I mean, it's done to worship the god of the bull, the Ibis. And we have like 23 burial chambers. And in those burial chambers, you have like the sarcophagus of the bull that is in there. So this is how it looks like when you are in there, and you move through this gallery, and left and right, you have those burial chamber as they are indicated here. Now, this is the history, or this is the site from an archaeological or an heritage point of view. If we look at it from an engineering point of view, it's actually a tunnel that is dug in here into the rock. And this tunnel is about, I would say 3 to 4 meters height, 3 meters width. And it is dug within the natural overburden that are in here. And it's mainly limestone, marl, and shale. This is what you have here. And the thickness above this tunnel is about 10 meters, I would say. I mean, you have here 2 to 3 meters of green shale, which is the layer within which the tunnels are dug. And then you have like 6 to 8 meters of limestones and shales and marl. So That's the engineering, let's say, analysis of it. Now, in order to understand this and to understand how to analyze, how to ensure the stability of such a tomb that is naturally dug within the rock, something like maybe 2,500 or 3,000 years ago. This is what we've done. We converted this this natural site, or this natural layers, into a model. And this model is actually simulated using some rock mechanics simulation softwares. Here, for instance, we have a software called UDEC, which is a universal distinct element code. And in this universal distinct element code, we are able to actually to identify what are the stresses that are applicable on the roofs of this structure. So you see here the types of stresses that are in there, the tension and the compression that are within the roof. And even though you can also see in a cinematographic way, you can see that some of the blocks of the roof have the tendency to detach and fall. And doing this analysis will allow us to know actually several parameters that we need to know in order to ensure the stability of such structure. We need to know the stresses, the direction of the stresses, because the direction of the stresses is very important for us to design a supporting structure. We need to know which rocks will detach first, because those will be the rocks that we will need to attach again in order to keep things in their place. And we need to know also the amount of stresses that are acting on this on this rock, in order to design a support structure, if of course if needed, if the rock is not able to support itself. So all of those questions we take into consideration. Is there any presence of water, bedding planes, time, of course, as I said at the early beginning, this slide where we have the semicircle, where I spoke about the time, the lithology, the water, the environmental conditions, the humidity, the heat, I mean, everything. We need to take all of those into consideration, and we need to put them into this like simulation software in order to know how much stresses are there, directions of those stresses, and which blocks are susceptible to be moving, so that we can design a good structure to support the roof and to ensure the stability of that structure. Actually, this was done in Egypt, and nowadays, if you visit this site, you will see here. I mean, I hope that you are able to see it. There is here a kind of a metallic structure that is put into those burial chambers, and those metallic structures are done according to calculations in order to support the roof that is above them. So this is the kind of work, or this is the kind of thing that we do in order to ensure the stability. Now I'll move to another case from Egypt, the Colossae of Memnon. This is in Luxor, in south of Egypt, and they consist of huge, something like 30 meters or 35 meters long of limestone statues for the king, I think Tutmosis III, and those structures are put here in place. And at some point of time, we started observing that those structures are actually leaning behind. So if you look into this side view, this statue is actually leaning towards the back. So there was a risk that it will fall on its back. Now, this is again another case of rock mechanics, classical rock mechanics, I would say, because we started looking into the foundations, and here we started looking into the vegetation that is in here, the water that is below the surface, and how this water is affecting the rocks and the layers that are below here in the foundation, and what is the weight of this statue, and the weight is transferred into stresses. we divide the weight, we convert the weight into force, and then the force into stress by dividing it by the unit area. And then you have like the stresses that are in here. So this is what we do. I mean, we looked into the different layers or different types of rocks that are in here in order to calculate its total weight. So the forces that are applicable. And then we started looking into scenarios of how to prevent this statute from falling below. I mean, if you can see here, this is, as I said before, this is the statute, and then it may be moving towards the front, or it may be moving towards the back. And the most probably is that it would move towards the back because the center of gravity is higher here. So it probably will move towards the back. And if it moves towards the back, then it might fall. And we needed to design a structure that would support this, that would prevent this movement from happening, because we need to keep this statute in place. We need to keep this thing into its own settings. Again, another classical way of looking into mechanics. I mean, this is like stress and resistance, and then you compare the stress and resistance, and you see which is what is the factor of safety that you have here. Now, a third case, which is very famous, I hope that you know about it, is the Temple of Abu Simbel in south of Egypt. It's like 1,200 kilometers south of Cairo, and in like 300 kilometers south of Aswan. And this temple was actually dug into a slope originally. And you have galleries that goes inside this temple, and those galleries are like 50 meters long, and it's all of limestone. I mean, all dug into limestone. And again, this temple had to be studied in terms of stability in order to know if it's stable. Is it stable? Will the rock fall? Will the rock not fall? Because in ancient times, we have observed that it consists of 4 statutes of Francis II. And here you can see this third statute, its head is actually here on the ground, has fell on the ground here because of earthquakes that happened before. And we needed to know what would be, how can we go about this, the stability of this temple. And here you have a lot of studies and a lot of engineering works that was done in order to ensure that it is stable. We actually built a dome behind it in order to ensure its stability and that it will be kept in place. A fourth typical case study is the Temple of Hatshepsut in south of Egypt, again in Luxor, some 700 kilometers south of Cairo. And here the temple is dug actually inside the cliff, which is mainly limestone and shales, with all the problems that could happen from the swelling of shales or the limestones and so on and so forth. Again, a classical slope stability case study that has to be studied from an engineering point of view. And here I have some like cross section. This is the cross section of the mountain. So it's mainly shale and limestone, and then chalk, and then shale, and then limestone again, and then some faults going here and there. And we study actually the materials, the rocks that we have, and the types of rocks that we have, and the resistance of those rocks. And we have, I'm citing here a publication that was done by some colleagues from Poland that are working on the stability of the monument. Again, taking into consideration the rock types, the steepness of the slope, the time, the water, the type of rocks that we have, the resistance of the slopes, and everything that is in here. Now, this is the fifth case. This is the before last one, and this is the tomb. This is those are the engineering drawings of the tomb of the King Ramses II, the very famous Ramses II. And it's a huge tomb that is in Luxor, again, 700 kilometers south of Cairo. And you can see that it consists of a gallery, a very long gallery with some rooms here with columns, and then another gallery, and then it goes right. And then you have here a big room with auxiliary small rooms, and then you have here like columns. and then small rooms, auxiliary rooms as again as well. So it's something big, and this is the elevation. This is how it goes. It goes like yeah, I mean, it goes like 20-25 meters below the surface, and it is dug inside the rocks of the natural rocks of the earth. And ancient Egyptians actually, in order to dig this, they needed to look into the stability of that of that tomb. And actually, yeah, this is like an isometric view of the tomb, geometric view of the tomb. And here I have some photos of the inside of the tomb. And actually, what we have observed is that because of the swelling of the shale in the roof, and because of the swelling of the shale in the rocks that are surrounding this tomb, a lot of the pieces of the tomb has fallen down, and this is how it looks like today. Ruins with time, with water, with a lot of swelling and a lot of cracks, the natural cracks that existed, to the point that we are now obliged in this tomb specifically to put roof bolts here and to put some supporting materials in order to keep things in places until we find a permanent solution. So again, it's the same thing. We look into the stresses, the forces that are acting on this space. We look into the stresses. We look into the resistance that are coming from the rocks itself, and how can we enhance that. And then we calculate factors of safety or factors of stability. And then if it is not stable, as we can see here in some places, then we need to install supporting materials. And those supporting materials could be permanent, could be temporary, like those ones that are here, but they also could be permanent and could be installed for long time. This is I will go very quickly through this case, because it's actually a case where you have like an old house, an old house palace in Cairo. And this place, I mean, this is the drawing of that palace, where it consists of pieces of limestone that are put together. And those pieces of limestones are actually, I mean, we look into the resistance again, and how this resistance is affected by the time and by the types of rocks that are in there. And then we calculate the risk that might be in there. The last case that I'll have for you is actually the case that comes from my PhD some 20 years ago. And this is the tomb of Ramses I in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. This is the entrance to the tomb. This is how the tomb looks like inside. And it's very valuable. I mean, it's very beautiful. The colors are very beautiful. The colors are very vivid. But at the end of the day, it's an underground tomb. And as I showed you, if you remember the churches that are in Bulgaria, where you have a crack that is running into the roof, here in this tomb, you can also see that there is a crack that is running into the roof like this. You can see it here, actually. I will show it to you in a different. But anyway, this is how it looks like. This is the Birya Chamber of the king at the end of the tomb, and this is how it looks from an engineering point of view. So it's a gallery that is inclined, that it goes down until you reach here the burial chamber, which is a big room, and then you have like two auxiliary rooms to the left and right. And this is the isometric view of of Ramses I tomb. Now, what we did, actually, this is my part of my work, is that you look into this from a geotechnical point of view. So you need to account for the slopes, and you need to account also for all the joints that you have in the roof. And this is, I mean, those lines are the accounting of the joints that you see into the roof. So this joint here, for example, this one here, this particular one here, is actually what was into this gallery. You can see it here with your bare eyes, but here you can see it from an engineering point of view. So this is how it looks like from an engineering point of view, and this is how it looks like in a photo. Now, we did a lot of calculations for the amount of stresses that are in within this tomb, and the result was actually that we needed to have a supporting material for the roof of the burial chamber, and this is actually what we did. So this is the result of the study, that we need to put here this wooden structure in order to support the roof, because otherwise we will face that the roof will fail, that the roof will fall down and everything will collapse, like the tomb that we have, like the tomb that we have seen on the Tutankhamun, sorry, the Ramses II. Now, I know that maybe I moved a little bit faster or fast than expected, but I tried to cover this those topics. So I tried to speak about this, how the stability of rock structures are usually done, the problems that we face and the causes and their causes, what are the main causes that we need to look into. I brought you some examples from heritage rock sites around the world: Bulgaria, India, Petra, Jordan, and there was Peru as well. And then I went into the cases from Egypt, and I went into a little bit more into details. Again, and I mean, I think I'm repeating myself for maybe the 10th time now. The issue is about rock mechanics, the mechanics of the rocks. So you need to calculate what are the forces that are acting here, what are the resistances that are in there, and if needed, you need to put additional resistance in order to keep this structure into place, or to keep it stable, as we say in That's all what I had from you now. Thank you very much, and I'm of course open for any questions, or I mean, I leave it to Mayar actually to lead the discussions afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yasser, for this informative session. And now we will have a quick Q&A session. Our first question, Dr. Yasser, is related to: does the stability of rocks around the area affects the decision of exploratory engineers digging a hole, for instance, drilling, even when there is high chances of finding oil in large scale?
The stability of the area around, I think the question was about oil fields more than underground structures. The stability, for me, the stability of the area around this oil field is of course very important, but we need also to put into consideration that empirically we usually speak about a zone of influence of 3 times the size or the radius of the zone of influence. How can I say this? I mean, if you have, if you can imagine that you have like an oil reservoir, and this oil reservoir is like 100 meters in width and 100 meters in length. Let's put it this way. Then the zone of influence, or the zone that we need to look into, is like we need to look into 300 meters outside the this oil reservoir, because empirically this is the zone where it is affected. If we go beyond that, if we go like 2 kilometers, or even 1 kilometer away from an oil reservoir that is 100 meter by 100 meter, there will be no effect. I mean, we will see nothing. We will observe no effect of that of that kind. I hope that I have answered the question.
Thank you. And the second question: what are the causes of rock stability?
The causes of, I mean, I think the question is about the causes of rock instability. The causes of rock instability is actually this slide that I have here. Let me actually end the show. And the causes of instability could be all of those. Yes. So geographical settings, human activities, hydrological balance, vegetation, geomorphological processes, geological factors, and climate conditions, and time. So all of those are causes of rock instability.
Okay. Thank you. And can you tell us briefly about the tools used in measuring the stresses?
Stress measurements is done actually in two main different ways. One of them is real stress measurements inside the opening. So once we go inside the opening, we can measure the stresses, the real stresses, or we have equations and simulation tools that can tell us about the stresses that you can face within the underground. I mean, this is a big subject of research, but we have a fair, good. I mean, we can have a good estimate of the stresses that we can find in the underground using equations and using softwares.
Okay, and the last question: how much emphasis should we give on stress management of the rock structure so that these natural heritage keep on standing in coming years?
Well, I mean, I think that every cultural heritage site needs to be monitored, need to be looked at, because stability is crucial. And yeah, I mean, we need to look into all of them. I mean, I cannot say that this site is more important than that site, but we need to look into all of those cultural heritage sites. We need to monitor them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Yasser, really for
Thank you
your
so much.
great effort. And now, this session will be uploaded soon on PioPetro YouTube channel. So make sure that you subscribe on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, and bye.
Thank you. Bye.